Well, it's time to head back to Elm Street one last time, so let's rank this franchise. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone's doing well out there. And I reviewed every entry in a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. You can check it out in the playlist. All 8 films are there. And now it's time to rank this franchise that spans all the way back to 1984, Wes Craven's original. Okay, at number 8, Freddys Dead, The Final Nightmare. This is by far and away the worst entry in this franchise. The movie's a huge dumpster fire. I gave it a 1 out of 10. It is a huge shit sandwich on top of more shit. It just bad ideas on top of bad ideas. Poorly directed, poorly lit. Effects look terrible. Just an awful entry in a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And this was a lot of the reason why they went to Wes Craven a couple years later and let him do a new Nightmare. And rightfully so, because they did run it into the ground by this point. But at number 8, once again, Freddys Dead, The Final Nightmare. At number 7, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. Another bad entry, bad script, rush production. Like I said in my review, Stephen Hopkins had 4 weeks to shoot, 4 weeks to edit, and that was it. So it was one of those things where New Line was just rushing these films, and they didn't take their time to do them right, and it shows with the quality. There's a few cool scenes in this film, but overall, it's a lot of, again, just like The Final Nightmare, although this isn't quite as bad as The Final Nightmare, this film's definitely better directed, and there's a few cool scenes, but overall, this film's also a dumpster fire as well. And at number 7, once again, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. At number 6, now this is a film I hadn't seen in a long time either. This is one I didn't like when I was younger. I didn't like this one, and when I reviewed it, I said I hadn't seen it in like 15, 16 years, which was true. And I had more fun with it than I remember having, but way back when. And when I was younger, this was the most popular entry with a lot of my friends. This was the biggest entry in the franchise up until Freddy vs. Jason, or until the remake. Well, Freddy vs. Jason came first, but then the remake made more money. And that movie is, at number 6, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. I had a lot more fun sitting down with this one than I anticipated, because I remember through history that I didn't really care for this one, and I had more fun than I thought I would, but there's still a lot of problems, glaring issues. Like, you could tell they didn't have a script that was finished, and they were just making stuff up, and their scenes just didn't seem to have any connective tissue besides the characters being there. And we're in a Nightmare on Elm Street film, just like we go to scene to scene to scene, and you could tell, like I said in the watching the documentary Never Sleep Again, Rennie Harlan even said they were coming up with a lot of this stuff during production. You can tell that this was a production that wasn't ready. They didn't prep, they didn't give enough prep time, and they were just making stuff up. Although I still had a decent enough time with it, but still, this is nowhere near my favorite one. So at number 6, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. At number 5, I'm going to go with A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddys Revenge. This is one that I go back and forth on this one. Sometimes I like it a little bit more than others, but it's still not a great film. There's issues here. There's a lot of bad ideas. Freddy at the pool party is number 1 because he looks so small compared to the high school kids. It just looks laughably bad. The parakeet scene is awful. Has no real reason to be there. And it's okay. It's an okay film. You can sit down and watch it. It definitely keeps the darker tone with Freddy. But my issues with the film also is that it came out pretty quickly after the original, and it's such a strong departure from the first film. And there's no connective tissue with the first film besides they find Nancy's diary and Jesse's living in Nancy's house. Other than that, there's like totally new rules for Freddy that weren't established in the first one. It's definitely its own film, and it's okay. But again, at number 5, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddys Revenge. At number 4, I'm going to go with A Nightmare on Elm Street Remake from 2010. This film's okay. I liked it a lot more when I first originally saw it, but over repeated viewings over the years, this is where it lands. This is pretty much where it deserves to go. At number 4, this film's okay. I like Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy. I like Clancy Brown in the film. Connie Britton's okay. Runa Mara is just sleepwalking through this film, as I said in my review. It looks like you could tell she didn't want to be there, and reading some info on it, she hated this production, almost quit halfway through, and you can tell. It plays the greatest hits from the original, and I know it's tough in a remake because you're trying to pay homage to the original film by trying to do something different, but they go back to Wes Craven's well way too many times, and their over reliance on CGI in some scenes, like the scene where Freddy comes out of the wall, looks laughably bad compared to the original film. But overall, I can still watch it. It's only 95 minutes. I gave it a 6.75 out of 10. It's an okay Nightmare on Elm Street film, but it wasn't very well received upon release. But at number 4, that's where the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street comes in, at number 4. At number 3, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. Now, this is a really great sequel to the original film. Chuck Russell and Frank Darabont definitely got very creative with some of the rules, building off of what Wes Craven set up in the first film. And I like that they brought Nancy Thompson back and John Saxon's character back. I like that connective tissue to the original film, which Part 2 was sorely lacking. So I like all of that. I like the new characters they introduced, Kincaid. I like all these new characters and their powers in the dream world. Some of it doesn't work. Some of it comes off a little cheesy, but it's still a very well shot film, a well written film, and I like the ending, how they dispatch of Freddy. And they set up Amanda Krueger's character about how she was raped by 100 maniacs. That was due to the birth of Freddy Krueger. That's all fine and good. And this kind of, you could almost say this film started the wisecracking Freddy a little bit, but Part 4 really took it to the next level, and then 5 even more, and 6 obviously is a joke of a film. But I love this film. It's a great sequel, and it comes in at number 3. At number 2, I'm going to go with Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I know this one and Part 3 can flip-flop sometimes, but after rewatching them just recently for this review series, I got to put Wes Craven's New Nightmare here. It's a really excellent sequel to the original film. I like the new ideas Wes brings to it. When he shot that, it's really well written. I love Heather Langenkamp in this film. I love all the actors playing themselves, like John Saxon and Robert Englund. I like the aspect where Freddy's coming like as a real demon in real life, and now that the movie stopped, he is stalking the people that worked on the film. And like I said, Freddy, and like I said in my review, Freddy doesn't show up for a good chunk of the film, until you actually see Freddy. But he looms large over the whole film, and Wes Craven does a good job of ratcheting up the tension, even without Freddy on screen. You know he's there, he's omnipresent the whole time, but you don't see him. But when you do see him, I like the redesign. He's definitely going for a more darker tone with Freddy, and he's pushing him way more back to what he was in the first film. I like that a lot. And there's some really good special effects, although the early stage CGI from '94 looks terrible. That holds it back a little bit. And the ending, I don't think, it works okay, but it's not the greatest ending. I know he's going for the Hansel and Gretel ending. I'm not a huge fan of that. It's okay. But the rest of the film is so good. It's actually kind of ahead of its time when it was released, because this is the precursor to Scream. That's when Wes Craven took Menda to the next level, him and Kevin Williamson. But I think this was ahead of its time. It's a really fabulous sequel. So at number 2, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And at number 1, my favorite of the franchise, the original 1984, A Nightmare on Elm Street. What more can be said about this classic film? I mean, Wes Craven did a great job of establishing this universe, establishing Freddy Krueger as this slasher villain. And I know there was some problems on set between him and Bob Shaye, especially when it came with the endings. We get that really kind of, the ending's not the greatest when he pulls the mom through the door. It doesn't look that great. But besides all that, the rest of the film is great. It's definitely a horror classic made by one of our horror masters who sadly is not with us anymore. But at number 1, Wes Craven's original A Nightmare on Elm Street. How would you rank this series? Leave a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite is. What's your least favorite? Let me know about that. Freddys Dead was the easy one. I know a lot of people hate that one, but some people dig it. Let me know how you feel about it. Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Share this video. Hit the like button. I would greatly appreciate that. I will be back later in the week with 3,000 Miles to Graceland, starring the great Kurt Russell and Kevin Costner. Until then, I hope everyone's doing well out there, and we're wrapping up our Nightmare on Elm Street review series with this ranking. I hope you enjoyed this series, and I'll see you soon. Bye.